This video is going to be about setting up your document and having the correct bleed lines and safety lines. So I have Illustrator open, and I'm simply going to go down and click on Create New. And when I click Create New, I will get a new window and I will get to set up my document. Now I'm probably going to want to title this something like Project 1 with my name. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure I have a horizontal artboard. Well, if you have a design that would be better vertically, vertical is fine too. But for now, I'm going to use horizontal. I'm going to make my width 17 inches, my height 11 inches, and I have one artboard. My bleed is going to be 0.25 inches all the way around. If I type it in 1, because it's connected, it should, and I hit tab, it should make the same bleed in all the other dimensions. Then if you don't have these options here, it's advanced options here. You just click on the little arrow next to advanced options. You want to make sure you're using RGB color. Your screen, your raster effects screen 72 ppi is fine, and your preview mode default is also fine. And then I can click create. I'm going to hit the green button so this fits on screen, and I'm going to hit Command 0 on my keyboard so it also fits on screen. Now we have our properties panel over here, which is something you're going to be using often, but I'm going to suggest you click on layers because I'm going to use this opportunity to talk about layers as well and organizing your file. First things first though, we need to set up our safety. Now, safety is basically set so that your art isn't too close to the edges of your document, because if this were to ever be printed out, oftentimes when your images are cropped, they're not cropped exactly right on this line. So first thing what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to View and go to Rulers and choose Show Rulers. The shortcut is Command R, otherwise View Show Rulers. And now I have my rulers on the top and bottom of the screen. I'm going to pull out guides that I'm going to place a half an inch from each edge of the page. So for my vertical guides, I just go to the left side here and I pull out a guide. I'm pressing and holding on my mouse pad here, and I can release when I'm at a half an inch on top. And I can do the same thing for the other side, pulling out a guide, putting it a half an inch from the right side. Then when I want my horizontal guides, I go to the top ruler, I click and drag out and leave a guide at a half an inch. And if you miss, you can definitely grab it and move it again. And then I'm going to do the same thing near the bottom. All right, so there we go. Now, all these guides are actually on a layer here. And I'm actually going to click on this layer and call it Guides, because I like to have my files organized. Now, for our illustration, Command 0 there, we want there to be 2 panels, right? Now, I can just draw those panels out, or I can measure them out too. So I'm going to measure them out, and I'm going to measure my panels to be an inch away from the edge. Your panels can be a different size. They don't even need to be rectangular. They could be square, they could be circular, they could be a different shape. But just for this demo, I'm going to show you just rectangular, with them being an inch from the edge of the page. So I'm just going to pull out some guides here to make this image an inch from the edge. And then I need to find the center of the page here, and 17 divided by 2 is 8.5. So 8.5 is the center, and I want my 2 panels to be a half an inch apart from each other. I want them a little closer than they are from the edge of the page, so I'm just going to move it over 1/4 inch for one side, and then 1/4 inch from the center for the other side, so there's a half an inch between them. And your spacing can be different, that's okay. So there we go. Now, for the sake of visualizing my panels, I'm going to go grab my rectangular tool here, and I'm just going to make a rectangular shape that fits within the guides that I made. I'm going to drop it there. I can go to my properties panel, and so I can see it better, I can fill it with a color. I'm going to make it purple. Now I can certainly draw another shape, or I can grab my direct selection tool and click Oh, I want to keep it selected. I can hit Command C for copy, click off of it, Command V for paste. Then I have another shape that is the exact same size. I can line it up to my guides, and there we go. There are my two panels. Now if I go back to my layers, I can look, and these two panels are in my guides layer, and I don't want them to be there. So I'm going to go down to the bottom where this new Create New Layer icon is and click it. And I'm going to call that Panel Background. Okay. Then I'm going to take each of these and drag them onto that layer. Now to do that, I need to click on the layer I want to move. Make sure that the circle here is chosen, the target. Then I grab the little square next to it and just move it up. Now that square is red. That's because each layer has a different color so that you can tell them apart. You can see how this image is this shape is selected, so it's red. If I click on this shape, the selection around it is blue because it's on the blue layer. So anyway, that's selected. So I can grab the blue square, bring it up, and now both of those are in the panel background. And I need that to be underneath my guides. Now, when you do the background to your whole file, you want to make sure that your background shape goes all the way to the bleed line. So I'm going to grab my rectangular marquee again, and your background can be whatever color or colors you want, but I am going to make a shape that goes all the way out to the bleed line and drop it. Now it's the same color as my panels, so I'm just going to go into my fill and choose a different color, maybe that color. Now, I can't see my panels because if I look at my layers, that is actually above my two smaller rectangular panels. So again, I'm going to make another background layer, or a layer, and I'm going to move it to the bottom, and this time I'm going to call it background. And I will make sure that that circle is selected and drag it down and drop it there. So now it is behind my panels. So that is important. Oh, and you know what? I didn't make it right. I made this as a background within the panel background, and I don't want to. I want to make it its own background. So I'm going to try that again. I'm going to go down, create a new background layer. I'm going to call it background. I am going to take this background and drop it there. There we go. I'm going to delete this because I didn't want that as part of the panel background layer. And then I can move this underneath it. There we go. Now, the great thing about this too, having these all separate, is that I can lock these layers. So if I click in this space between the eyeball and the color of the layer, that layer is now locked. And so, whoops, I can no longer select or move it. I can lock my guides, so there also I cannot move them. The same thing with my panels. Now I'm also going to suggest that you create 2 more layers. So I'm just going to make them both right now. I just clicked on it twice. I'm going to click on one and call it left. I'm going to click on the other one and call it right. And again, I want to make sure the guides are on top or I'm not going to be able to see those. When I'm working on my left panel, I suggest you click on the left layer there. So maybe my left panel, I'm going to put some shapes. You're going to put your illustrations on there. I'm going to fill it with maybe that color. So all these shapes are on this layer. When I work on the right side, I am going to click and drag and create these shapes that are on the right layer. Now what I can do is, if I want to just work on the left side and not be distracted by the right layer, I can shut that off. Or I can lock it so that I don't accidentally select that when I'm trying to work on this layer. Oops, and I grabbed everything. I need to lock the panels. Now I can select just those stars, and they don't affect the right even if I drag it over. So that's how you should build your document.